Hello and welcome to another episode of On Fire here on Daily Mirror. On the program today, I have with me ITAK Member of Parliament Shanakiyan Rasamanickam to discuss a rather developing situation in the East, especially in Batticaloa, as well as overall the situation concerning the Tamil community. Welcome once again, Mr. Rasamanickam. Good to have you on the program today.
Likewise, Easwaran, likewise.
So we seem to be having a situation developing in Batticaloa initially with the monk coming out and creating some issues, and now we see some incidents relating to the farmers there as well with the cattle. What exactly is happening? I know you've been involved a lot in this issue. What is happening there?
Yeah, good to be on the program with you, Easwaran. Even though you still haven't forgotten us, and you still continue to do the program. So I would like to wish you all the best for you to continue these programs, so that we can actually communicate some of the issues on the ground to the audience. In fact, the Eastern Province, the whole of Eastern Province. If you look at the Eastern Province, not just Batticaloa. The composition of Eastern Province the demography has been changed significantly since 1948. State-sponsored colonization has happened in the Eastern Province since 1948, where the demography has changed significantly. In fact, in the district of Ampara, that's the Digamadula district, which didn't even exist in 1940, it was called South Batticaloa at the time. Since it was created, the Sinhala population in the Ampara district has increased by 1,200%. And overall in the Eastern Province, the Sinhala population has increased by 800%, and this has been done artificially. So the Sinhala population's growth rate in other districts like Gampaha, Monragala, Kegol, any other district in the rest of the country, on average is around 200%. So since independence, there has been a systematic effort to change the demography of the Eastern Province. So now the Eastern Province's numbers stand at 40%, around 40 to the Tamil and Muslim community, and then the rest of them is Sinhala. So we have no problem of any Sinhala person coming and settling in the Eastern Province. Now, the argument a lot of people say
ask you, why is it important about this whole demography which you're talking about?
Getting to, we can't take it just out of context as to what's happening on the ground today. This is part of a larger project that has been happening in the Eastern Province since 1948. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense if I just tell you what's happening right now on the ground. It doesn't make sense without knowing a little bit of the history behind it. So, so in the Eastern Province, the composition is 40%, and the balance of it is Sinhala people. But you see, the argument that a lot of people say, so what is wrong with Sinhala people coming to the Eastern Province and settling there? You have Tamil people who live in Vellavatta, in Colombo, in other parts of the country. There are Kovils in other parts of the country. So why can't Sinhala people settle in these? Why is it a problem? So we have absolutely no problem of anybody of any ethnicity, any religion, any race coming and settling in the Eastern Province or any part of the country. As long as that they do it out of their own will. So now let's say people who have settled in Colombo, have bought a house in Colombo and have raised a family in Colombo and have moved to Colombo, as opposed to in the Eastern Province where the government provides land and provides houses and then brings people from other parts of the country to settle them there. So I mean, if I understand, if there was no lands in the other part of the country, the only lands that were available in this entire country was in the Eastern Province, and there was no other way but for people to be settled there, that is absolutely fine. But this systematic approach has been, since independence, has been to change the demography so that the Eastern Province has a different composition. Now the Northern Province they're just slowly beginning to change the demography. So all these issues, this pasture land issue, is part of this historic project of successive governments. So in the past, now in the 50s and the 60s, there were irrigation projects like the Galloya scheme, the Valioya scheme, Now, these schemes where people were brought in from different parts of the country and given land there, and now they've been settled there. And the Mahavali Authority has been the body that is being used since the 70s to change the demography. Now, for an example, in the district of Ampara, this time there was no Tamil member of parliament elected. The reason for that is the demography in the Ampara district has changed. So now the Tamil people of Batticaloa, Ampara don't have an elected representative. The Tamil National Alliance gave our own sole nationalist spot to Ampara. In Trincomalee, there is only one Tamil member of parliament. The others are two Muslims and a Sinhala person. So it is only in Batticaloa that there is no Sinhala representation in the parliament. Now, again, I can be branded as a racist or a Tamil nationalist that who is anti-Sinhala. That is not the case. It is that artificially these things being changed. Now, people of Batticaloa who currently have 4 members of parliament who are from the Tamil community obviously do not want to lose their representation in parliament in the future. So the Mahavali Authority is now, in the current context, this pasture land issue is a larger project. So there are 2 aspects to it. One is the livelihood of the farmers being lost. So we have a herd of almost 600,000 cattle who use this area that is now being used to colonize as grazing land. And the colonization it's happening different now. In the 70s and the 60s, it was done in a systematic manner where the government selected the beneficiaries and gave them 2 acres of land or 3 acres of land and gave them deeds and permits. But now, since there is a lot of attention being given to state-sponsored colonization, the government's approach has been to allow people to go and clear a plot of land and encroach that land however they please. So now this is happening without any control. So even right now, so this particular pasture land where you see I've been tweeting and I've been speaking in parliament where cattle are being killed, a herd of 600,000 cattle traditionally have been taken to this pasture land during the monsoon season. So, the Batticaloa's primary livelihood is the economy depends on fisheries, agriculture and livestock. So, during the monsoon season is when most of the paddy lands are cultivated because there is no irrigation project yet. So, based on the rainfall, people start their agriculture-related activities based on rainfall. So, when the monsoon season starts, these cattle are asked to be taken to the grazing land, the pasture land, which is the Mailathamadu Madhavana area, which is the one that is under question right now. And this has been the practice for the last 100 or 200 years. Now, when you take 600,000 cattle into this pasture land and you have around 1,000 people who have encroached this pasture land, various parts of the pasture land, then there is a conflict, there's a human-animal conflict, just like the elephant-human conflict. Now there's a cattle versus farmers conflict that is happening in this pasture land. Now this is a man-made crisis, and the reason behind this, if the government's intention was to allow people to give people land to do agriculture, there is ample land in Batticaloa, Polonnaruwa and Ampara that could have been given systematically. There could have been a vetting process, they could have identified the beneficiaries. Now, even the Mahavali Authority does not have any control over the people who are coming and encroaching these lands. So we had to go to court to stop this from happening. So now the Court of Appeal said all encroachers are illegal. Based on that, only 13 people the Mahavali has only filed action against 13 individuals who have encroached because they are saying they don't have details of the others who have encroached. Now, this has caused a human-animal conflict because in the pasture land, people have started cultivating maize. So when there's a herd of 600,000 cattle who graze in these areas, obviously the maize farmers' cultivation is also damaged. So when that happens, we are not opposed to any of these people who are cultivating there because they're actually people who deserve land. But the problem is that they are cultivating the pasture land. So the issue is that the government has created this issue right now because as soon as the first few encroachers came in the months of June, July, I raised this matter in Parliament, and the response that the minister in charge, Roshan Ranasinghe, who is now in a lot of controversy. He's also the minister in charge of Mahavelian irrigation. The response he gave to me was Balamu. We'll see. So, I mean, that's a very irresponsible response from a minister, knowing that such a conflict can arise. So now, based on that, the monks, obviously now now it has become more than a issue that involves paddy farmers or livestock farmers or Chena cultivators. Now this has become a political project where they are saying the Sinhala people are being chased away from Batticaloa. That is not the case. The reality is that people who have encroached land are being evicted. And if whether Tamil, Muslim or Sinhala, state land is not anybody's land for them to encroach. So I mean, now if you look at Colombo, there Vihara Mahadevi Park is there. It's bare land. Just because someone in Colombo doesn't have land to do agriculture, can someone go and start a maize cultivation in the Vihara Mahadevi Park? So based on that, then the monks got involved, and the monks who got involved, they are notorious monks who have had the blessings of the Rajapakshas in the past, and they have now converted this into a political project. And also former governor of Eastern Province, who was also involved in this a few years ago. Now, this is not the first time that this issue has started. When the monsoon season starts, this issue begins, because the Chena cultivators who come to these lands to encroach and do cultivation also come only when the rain season starts, because there is no irrigation in those areas. The livestock farmers also take their cattle to these pasture lands when the agriculture season starts, which is based on the monsoon season. So this is what it is, Easwaran. So there is a huge project that's being carried out to villainize me in the south as well, to say that Shanakiyan Rasamanickam is opposed to Sinhala people being settled in, or Sinhala people entering Batticaloa. That is not the case. But the government's long-term agenda is that these 1,000 people will eventually say that they have been doing cultivation in Batticaloa, and then they will want to enter the voters register in Batticaloa, which will then allow them to elect a member of parliament from Batticaloa who is Sinhala person. So if that is the case, I understand that anybody has the right to go anywhere, Sinhala people can come there. Then my counter argument is, okay, there are many people in Batticaloa who don't have land. So can we select 1,000 people, take them to the district of Polonnaruwa or Anuradhapura, find some land and give them that land? So that way, the Tamil people can also have a representation in Anuradhapura or in Polonnaruwa. So unfortunately, these two things that are completely unrelated, the Tamil representation being reduced in parliament, and livestock farmers and maize cultivators are two different things. But unfortunately, the political body has connected these two, and now that has become an issue.
Yeah, like you said, that there is this campaign being carried out to portray this as a Tamil Sinhalese issue as opposed to a issue concerning these farmers. But is this now coming to a point where it's boiling up and it will actually become an issue between Tamils and Sinhalese as opposed to an issue concerning farmers and their pasture land?
Now, Easwaran, this is precisely my concern, because the government has lost its any sort of approval that people had towards the government in the last year, because obviously the queues for fuel queues, the power supply shortages, and the shortage of cooking gas, all that has resolved. So therefore, there was some sort of a sense of approval from the public towards this government. But now it's been a year since these shortages were there. Now people are looking at more real long-term solutions as opposed to short-term solutions, because their short-term issues have been resolved. So when that happens, things like inflation, now we see government ministers talking about inflations, including the central bank governor, about the inflation coming down to single digits. But even though the inflation has come down to single digits, the hyperinflation that we had and the cost of living that increased significantly in hundreds of percentages has not reduced. The basic necessities like milk powder or sugar or any of these, the price has now almost doubled or tripled, and now that price remains at that double triple price. So the inflation, even though it's not increased now, the inflation rate, even though it's not high now, it has increased significantly in the last 2 years that it now is under single digit. So if the prices have come down, that we can accept. So therefore, people are struggling to meet their daily, monthly needs based on their income. So the VAT has been increased now to 18%. The pay tax has been increased. So even though the government employees have gotten a 10,000 pay hike, on the other hand, they are paying all sorts of taxes. Now, taxation is important for the government to increase state revenue. But there are other alternatives that the government had gone ahead with to increase the state revenue as opposed to burdening the public. So when these things haven't been done and the public dissent is increasing and the public's opposition or the approval ratings are reducing, with the most certainty of a presidential election happening next year, the government will need a new campaign, or even whoever the candidates are would need a new platform to go in front of the people. So the entire anti-Tamil, the last year was anti-Muslim, obviously with the Easter Sunday attacks, and now again, the prospect of using the anti-Tamil sentiment as a platform for election is very much a reality. So for that, so this is a project that is being carried on now. This started in Trincomalee, because Trincomalee, within the eastern province also, Trincomalee has an equal proportion of Tamil, Sinhala and Muslim, around 33% or 40-30, very, very close to, the percentage are very close as opposed to the entire eastern province. So these issues started in the eastern province, where monks started a campaign against the governor of the eastern province, Sendil Tondaman. They stormed into the district development committee meeting and they were saying that Sendil is not letting them build temples, and these issues came up. And they said that Sendil Tondaman is an anti-Sinhala person. So I think Honorable Governor had a press meeting and he said, you see, in the 6.9 million votes that Gotabaya Rajapaksa got, the Ceylon Workers' Congress had a large portion of it from the ethnic numeric minorities votes in that 6.9 million. So Gotabaya Rajapaksa was seen as a savior of the Sinhala people, and Sendil Tondaman and his party supported Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the presidential. So the only thing that he said is, how can you call me, an anti-Sinhala person when I was one of the pillars in the victory of the Rajapaksas? So since then, that campaign stopped, and then they have now moved to the eastern province, and that too they have targeted me. Now, you see, in this pasture land, Anuradha Yahampat and this monk were seen to go and place a Buddha statue. And overnight, the Buddha statue went missing. And then the police put up, checkpoints at the entry points to this region, only to prohibit from more encroachers coming. And it was said that Rasamanickam was the one who was responsible for setting up these checkpoints. So now the question that I would like to ask is, am I the commander-in-chief of the army? Am I the commander-in-chief of the police? Am I the minister in charge of police? Do I have such power to instruct the police to set up checkpoints? Do I have such power to go in the middle of the night to steal a Buddha statue? And it's not a little statue that you can carry. They had about 10-20 people carrying that statue. So because I have been very vocal on the government's policies overall on a national level as opposed to regional issues, there is some sort of, my name is known to a certain extent, especially with the Aragalaya and all that. And actually standing by the people, my name has come up in many forums in the south as well. So if they had targeted a regional politician, this wouldn't have gotten enough traction. So when a group of monks across the country relentlessly attack one individual and try to project a narrative, it after a while, people also tend to believe, that maybe Rasamanickam is behind all this. So this is basically this is a very well tested and proven theory that has helped people win elections, that is also being toyed with, just in case, because the government's approvals are reducing because they haven't been able to deliver on the economy. I mean, what do they go in front of the people saying? So also one more thing is mainstream media, like I would like to even say Hiru TV. I spoke about the Hiru TV's chairman Reno Silva buying shares in Sampath Bank just before the domestic debt restructure. Now, I said that maybe he had access to inside information, because with the domestic debt restructure in discussion, even members of parliament like myself we did not know how the domestic debt restructure was going to be done. The central bank governor, when we had a closed door meeting, he said we can't give you that information because it's market sensitive. So when the domestic debt restructure was about to happen, most people who owned shares in private banks or banking in the banking sector were selling their shares because they were worried that the domestic debt restructure might include a haircut for the banks. But in that instance, one individual went and bought a large number of shares, I think almost into 1 billion rupees worth of shares in Sampath Bank. So I raised this in Parliament and I said, how was this individual? I mean, people say no, he was a smart business person. He figured out that there was no debt restructure. But when members of Parliament like myself were not unaware if the domestic debt restructure would include a haircut for the banks, and so the ordinary citizens were selling their shares, so this individual bought large number of shares in Sampath Bank, knowing that there will be no haircut on the bank. So he made a killing profit on that. So I raised this in Parliament, and since that day, Hiru TV has continuously, now even yesterday's news I was watching it, I raised a question about how the electricity tariff hike was unfair, and that the Ceylon Electricity Board had a killing profit of almost 70 billion in the months of October, November, and including the projections for December, around 70 billion rupees worth of profits. So CEB being a service, that they should not have increased the price hike, because it's not a profit making, it shouldn't be a profit making entity. Now, in that oral question and answer that I had with the minister, which went on for about 9 or 10 minutes in Parliament, if you look at Hiru TV, they have published 5 minutes of the minister's response, not my question. So, these mainstream media outfits also have a part to play in misguiding these people. And obviously, Hiru TV, or I'm naming it because I have, if you look at it, there is a lot of proof that they have been doing it. So they are also very proactively propagating this narrative. Then if you look at the other media outfit, Derana TV's owner, I would say, I don't know if he's a chairman or whatever, Dilip Jayavira, obviously everyone knows Derana is Dilip Jayavira. Now Dilip Jayavira has floated a new political party and he's going around the country campaigning. If you look at who is on the side of Dilip Jayavira, that is Anuradha Yahampath. In their political party's office opening in the Sabaragamo province or somewhere, it is Anuradha Yahampath who is on the right hand side of Dilip Jayavira. Now Anuradha Yahampath is in the front of this particular mudslinging campaign against me, where even she said that Rasamanickam is trying to make Batticaloa into Gaza, that it's all draw parallels to the Palestine-Israel conflict, and said that almost like saying that I am that the Sinhala people are living like the people of Palestine in Gaza. So if educated people or people who have a open mind can think, should really look at these narratives and where these narratives are coming from.
But what is now, you are part of the opposition and there is an opposition leader, there is a main opposition in Parliament. We don't see, at least I've not seen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've not seen the Samagi Janabalawegaya or opposition leader Sajid Premdasa, raising these issues that are happening in the East, be it in Parliament or even coming out on the streets and, supporting ITAK on this issue. Why is that?
Well, Ishran, that's a question that you should ask Honorable Sajid Premdasa and any members of the SJB. It's because there was a monk who even said that he will cut every single Tamil person into pieces. I don't know if you saw it, went viral on social media. He said that every single Tamil person in the country, in the south, will be cut up into pieces. So we didn't see a single statement from any of the mainstream political parties condemning, not just SJB, let it be the JVP, SJB, SLFP, SLPP. So this is precisely why the Tamil people of this country feel like second-class citizens in this country, because
there are some Tamil MPs in the SJB as well. Shouldn't they actually be raising their voices on this?
Well, I think all the Tamil MPs, most of the Tamil MPs, I saw Honorable Velukumar, Honorable Mano Ganesh, and even Honorable Jeevan Thondaman had condemned these statements. So it will be unfair for me to say that they haven't said anything. But we didn't see Douglas Devananda or Pillyan or Vyalendran or any of the MPs who represent the north and the east who are part of the mainstream political parties condemning it, but the political parties who
But
represent
is condemning the only thing that can be done? I mean, when people like Jeevan Thondaman are part of the government, Senthil Thondaman is the governor, he's part of the government as well to some extent. Shouldn't they be, getting more involved in this and trying to resolve these issues as opposed to just issuing statements or making statements in Parliament?
Well, I think they have a collective responsibility for any of the decisions that the government takes when they're part of the executive. So that is definitely a question that you should ask them. But the overall problem is that issues concerning the North and the East have been only selectively addressed. Every single leader in this country who aspires to be the next president or who has aspired to be the president in the past have only addressed Tamil people's issues at the time of a presidential election. You see, lead up to a presidential election, there you see a large amount of development work that gets carried out, false promises, almost.
What if someone says the same thing about you as well? Now, with elections coming up next year, you are suddenly involved openly talking about all these issues that are happening, not even in the East,
That's not,
but even in the North as well.
Somebody who has followed me closely would know, Easwaran, that the first time I raised this parcel land issue was in 2020. When Gotabaya Rajapaksa couldn't resolve it, we went to court in 2020-21, beginning of 2020, late 2020, early 2021. Since the government was unable to resolve these issues, then we filed a case in the Court of Appeal. This is regarding the parcel land issue. And I have been very vocal, and this same monk, we had some issues with the archaeological department. I spoke about this. So my position has been consistent, but the problem is that some of these statements that we make are being sensationalized at times when they want to. So some of the things now, let's say during the Aragalaya, things that I said against the Rajapakshas were given. It's all sometimes the media's what the media chooses to publish. So if you follow my social media, my Facebook page or my Twitter account, or now in X account, you would see that I have been very consistent about raising my concerns about these issues. It's just that people like to see the issues that they want to see when they want to see.
Not you, but ITAK has been having discussions or had discussions with President Ranil Wickremesinghe on these Tamil issues, and he had given certain promises to you all as well. It doesn't seem like those promises have been met. Are there chances of further negotiations with the president, or are those doors now closed?
Well, Easwaran, it's not just Ranil Wickremesinghe. Since D.S. Senanayake, the Tamil political leaders have had engaged in discussions with every single elected or unelected leader in this country. And these discussions failing in the 60s and 70s and the 50s is what led to a civil war happening for 30 years. Since the end of the war has ended, but the ethnic conflict is still very much alive. There is no violence, there is no armed struggle, but still the struggle for now, we are not asking for separation, we are just asking for political power to be devolved. Now, these are very contagious topics. The minute that you speak about power devolution, we had a former foreign secretary who said devolution is separation. So that is the level of comprehension that even some of the senior officials have, so bureaucrats have. So it's a concern. So I think the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the day he was elected president, or the day after he was elected president by the parliament, met us at the president's office, and we raised the same concerns. I mean, my grandfather was a member of parliament in the 50s and the 60s. I once even said to a diplomat and to also the president that I read a speech that my grandfather had made in the 50s. It is not very different to what I say in parliament now. So these issues have been the same for the last 70 odd years. So the last round of discussions that we had with the president, what we said, president spoke about devolution, and he said for full implementation of the 13th Amendment, and also about the powers that were taken back from the provincial council to be given back to the provincial council. So what we said was that we don't accept the president's proposal as our proposal, but we are not opposed to president carrying out whatever his solutions are. Now, for an example, a lot of the proposals that were brought into parliament didn't have the backing of the TNA, but that didn't mean that the president didn't bring it or president didn't get it passed with the majority that he has in parliament. So this 13th, the dialogue around 13th Amendment being implemented and devolution and all that was to play to the gallery. That was to satisfy the international community. That was to satisfy India. So now he has said that, and he very correctly made very correctly in terms of his intentions were very correctly seen when he made a statement in parliament saying that he has no control over parliament, therefore parliament must decide about devolution, that he is for devolution. So but that is not the case when he wants to get other things, the domestic debt restructure that happened where 2 million EPF, ETF depositors future was jeopardized by the government. He asked seek the approval of the parliament. The TNA didn't support it, but then he has gone ahead and he's doing it. Various bills that were brought into parliament, even the anti-corruption bill, when the anti-corruption bill was brought in, we had concerns that there was no retrospective effect of that on that bill. And even after anti-corruption bill being passed, we just saw a sugar scam happen again for 980 million using the Special Commodities Act. So when the anti-corruption law was brought in, we said, this law is not a comprehensive law. It needs to be further strengthened, but still he was able to pass it. So if he was very serious about the Tamil people's issue, about, resolving this issue, he could have done the same with the parliament majority that he has, because the SLPP now are his puppets. Most MPs of the SLPP who are first-time MPs don't want the parliament to be dissolved because they very well know that there is no chance that they will make it back to parliament, because they have betrayed the trust of the people, they have worked against the people. So there is it's very unlikely that they would get re-elected. So the 9th parliament has almost another 1 year and 9 to 10 months to go for its full term. So most of these MPs would rather that the president doesn't dissolve the parliament. So for a member of parliament like myself, if somebody asked me, I would say go for elections tomorrow, because then you can really test the pulse of the people. You can get a people's mandate. You can get the approval of the people. People can choose what's best for them. But the government MPs are not willing to do that. So therefore, if the president was really serious on resolving these issues, and if it wasn't just a matter that was put forward to please the international community and to please India, the president could have used his majority to get these things done.
Since you mentioned India, do you think that India is doing enough on the whole issue concerning the Tamils? You mentioned that the president seems to be pleasing India. Do you think India is buying into that, and India is giving all the support that Ranil Wickremesinghe as president requires, as opposed to pushing on the Tamil issue?
Well, Easwaran, India is a neighboring country. India is a neighboring country, and in terms of India's priorities, is a stable Sri Lanka is needed for India to prosper as well. An unstable country that is now, if you look at Jaffna is closer to Tamil Nadu than Tamil Nadu is closer to Delhi. Jaffna is closer to Tamil Nadu than Jaffna is closer to Colombo. So what happens in the northern and eastern parts of Sri Lanka very much impact India's interest as well. So India's interest in this matter is, obviously they are concerned about democracy and and also the welfare of the Tamils who live in this country.
But they seem
not just
more interested in China as opposed to the whole Tamil issue.
Can you repeat that question, please?
They seem to be more interested in China's influence in Sri Lanka as opposed to the Tamil issue.
Well, those two are interconnected, Easwaran, because if you look at it, any threat that China poses to India is an issue for the Tamil people in the north and the east as well. Now, if you look at it, like I said, if there is ever a conflict between India and China has bases in the southern part of Sri Lanka, the Tamil people who live in the north and the east will be in the middle of it. So, most definitely we are concerned. That is why we are concerned about China's influence in the north and the east as well. Because if there is a genuine security threat to India or any security concern to India, that will be a security concern for us, because geographically we are closer to Tamil Nadu or India than to Colombo. So therefore, we can't accuse India of not doing enough, because like I said, India is another country. So the government of Sri Lanka has a responsibility for the Tamil people who live in this country more than what India does. So a lot of we write to not just India, we write to India, we write to America, we write to the European countries. Even the only reason why we don't engage with China is China has a policy of not even considering they will only look at economical related activity. When I had a discussion with the Chinese ambassador some time back, I told the ambassador myself, I said, look, you need to take an interest in the political situation in this country of the numerical minorities who live in the north and east. But then their response was that we don't get involved in another country, how another country deals with their internal political matters. But that they will support anything economically. So I said, giving 10 kilos of rice to people in the northern province is not going to resolve their issues. We need a lasting sustainable solution for issues. So, which is why that the Tamil parties are generally accused of working with India, because if China was interested in political solution in this country, we would be more than happy to work with China as well. But they have their own problems to deal with in their backyard. They have their own Uyghur Muslims who are being Uyghurs who are being forcefully constrained, and who are being that's a different subject altogether. So, and also also we work with countries that have some sort of recognition and value given to human rights and democracy. And China is not a country where there's democracy or where human rights is a thing that's practiced. So there is, the Rajapakshas and the Chinese, that's why they get along.
We had the budget debate going on now. We have the budget debate going on now, and the final vote is coming up as well. Briefly, has this budget, I know this is probably a stale topic, but I'd still like to bring it up. Has this budget looked at issues facing the Tamils, looked at their economic issues, and looked at addressing their economy as opposed to overall, the country?
Well, it's disappointing, Easwaran. I saw during the budget debate of the budget for the estate infrastructure development budget that happened with water supply and estate infrastructure. Honorable Jeevan Thondaman very correctly said that, when there is a numerical minority in a country, that there is the health ministry or the education ministry or the highways ministry, all these ministries will look at, national issues. So in under that, Tamil, Muslim, Sinhala, all these issues will be covered. Even when you come on when the transport ministry, we assume, or it should, that's how it should be. The transport issues in the northern province should also be addressed under the central budget. Now we have questions about how successful that has been, which is why we talk about devolution, because the distribution of resources have not been fair. I even raised the issue on the transport ministry, to which the transport minister at that time, Chamal Rajapaksa, responded saying that they had a policy, a national transport policy. So I said, well, it baffles me that your national transport policy has suggested that you should have a highway train airport to Hambantota and a harbour to Hambantota, right? So the minister had no real counter response to that. But in that budget speech on the state infrastructure, Honorable Jeevan Thondaman said that the state infrastructure ministry specifically looks at needs that, since there is no devolution of power, since the financial powers are not there for the provincial councils, since there is no elected provincial councils, since there are no provincial council elections, at least this ministry can look at specific issues in the state sector. But the northern province or the eastern province has no specific ministry that looks at issues in the northern and the eastern province. And it is important that we have that, because 14 years after the war, we are yet to catch up on the development that the north and the eastern province missed out on because of the 30-year-old war. There are areas that had where the government had no control over, have also, the distribution of resources, there is you need to really adapt, match up to whatever the development that was missed in those areas. So overall, north and east economic issues or budgetary allocations, I don't think anybody has ever been satisfied. And this budget is the same. But if there was a specific ministry at least that looked at, if there was a devolved provincial council with finance powers devolved, then the provincial council can take over the development work. We don't have to depend on the central government. The central government's job should be to make policy, not to do development. So since it's not there, we should have had some sort of ministry or some sort of allocation specifically for the north and the east. So that is not the case. And also we only have one cabinet minister in the entire north and eastern province, all 8 districts. That is Honorable Douglas Devananda, who is also a puppet of the government, and he's been there. He has been appointed the minister in charge of fisheries, because the fisheries issue is directly connected to the Tamil Nadu fishermen. So the government is happily letting the Tamils of the northern province and the Tamils of the southern part of India to clash amongst each other, to create a disharmony amongst the two groups, so that there is no sentiment towards the northern Tamil. So that is the only reason why Douglas Devananda has been appointed as a cabinet minister, that too for fisheries. So even overall within the budget, Easwaran, if you look at it, specific matters that if you look at it, matters that the eastern province has a northern and the eastern province have a serious issue. The country's current main income is through tourism. Apart from the apparels industry and the tea export, the largest forex earning thing. I mean, you can't consider housemaids and remittances from Middle East, because that shouldn't even be considered as a trade. But the tourism sector in the north and the east is dead. I sometimes joke around saying that the only white person or fair person, people, someone with a fair complexion in the Batticaloa district is myself. When the minister said there are tourists coming to Batticaloa, he said Suddo. He said Suddo enoa in Sinhalese. He said Suddo enoa Madakalapu. I said Madakalapu ekama Suddu Hamadiyan ekkana mama. Because we don't see tourists coming in, and the reason for that is there is no connectivity. I mean, why would a tourist want to come to Batticaloa, spend 8 hours on the bus or the train or even on a private vehicle to come to Batticaloa to look at the beaches, when they can easily do that by going to the southern province, which is why we say that there was no policy. Now, I even said this in Parliament. Look at Kurnagala district. I think Norelia and Kurnagala have one of the largest amounts of times it takes to reach a hospital. There's a research paper published by SEPA that was done by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, suggesting that the highest amount of time taken to go to hospital is in Norelia and I think Kurnagala, if I'm not mistaken. So even Mahinda Rajapaksa is now contesting from Kurnagala. So even for Kurnagala, he hasn't done much. So I mean, then we can't expect him to do much for the north and the. So the argument is that the roads were built, highways were built. I mean, rather the roads were built to the Jaffna district. The train came to the Yaldevi came, but those are things that came through, different lines of credit from foreign countries. What has the Sri Lankan government done?
And what are you planning to do now? We're coming to the end of the year. What would be your focus in 2024? What will be your party's focus in 2024? Is it the same issue, pushing for a political solution, trying to address the issue that's taking place in Batticaloa? Or are you all looking at changing direction?
Well, Easwaran, the problem is in this country for the Tamil people to, feel that someone always says, why talk about Tamil, Sinhala, Muslim? Why can't we all be Sri Lankan? So I said, okay, do you think the country will vote for a Tamil person to be president of this country? Is it that, will take another 20, 30 years? People's mindsets have to change. So I said, precisely. Till those people's mindsets change, it's very hard to convince my constituency to say, okay, let's forget, the human rights violations against the Tamil people. Let's forget the, whatever shortcomings of the reconciliation process, and let's all be Sri Lankan. When you yourself are saying that, not that I'm saying that a Tamil person aspires to become the president in the next president's election, but that is a simple question that explains why there's such an importance for reconciliation in this country. So the Tamil people of this country, there are two things that their aspirations are on, two main things. Development oriented, economic related is a third thing. But number one is accountability. The last week, memorialization is part of the reconciliation healing process. A mother who lost his or her son or her daughter in a war, that war could have been waged against the government of Sri Lanka, but for that mother, that son or the daughter is still the mother's son or daughter. The mother doesn't look beyond the son being a son or the daughter being daughter in any different context. So if the mother is stopped from remembering her dead son, now someone can say, so why do they have to all get together on one day and remember their loved ones? They don't even know when their sons were. So and during the last stages of the war, people don't know when their children died. So they remember all of them on the Mullivaikal Memorial Day. And throughout people who died throughout the year, they remember on the 27th of November. So the government has now in Batticaloa, 10 people have been arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, where the government gave a moratorium to not use the Prevention of Terrorism Act to the international community. The Prevention of Terrorism Act was used just in the last few days. 10 people have been arrested under the PTA. And then, about the human rights issues, Tamil people really want to know what happened to their loved ones in the last days of war. So, which is why the transitional justice mechanism is still hasn't been carried out in Sri Lanka. So, successive governments have given, various commitments to the international community, which haven't been carried out. So, this government's proposal to have a TRC, the TRC is a failure from the beginning, because I had a discussion. Honorable Ali Sabri summoned all the Tamil MPs, or not summoned, he asked all the Tamil MPs to join him for a discussion to analyze the Truth and Reconciliation Commission bill. So I said, we were given the bill on that morning. Within 1 hour, it wasn't enough time for us to go through it. So I just asked him a simple question. I said, Honorable Minister, let me ask you a question. So a mother who claims that a son is missing, you tell me what, you break down the process for me. He said, so if the mother has lost a son, they can come to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and if there's evidence, we will refer them to the OMP, that's the Office of Missing People. So I said, okay, fine. What happens next? He said, if the OMP finds enough reason to believe that the person was enforced disappeared, we will refer them to the OR, that's the Office of Reparation. I said, okay, fine. What's next? He said, we will give them a death certificate and we will compensate them for whatever. So I said, what about the truth? What about the justice? So the government is only, when it talks about the transition justice mechanism, they are only talking about reparations, giving a death certificate and finishing the case of no truth, no justice. So then when I said that, I said, so then we will then have a mechanism where the OMP then refers them to the Attorney General's department. Now, Easwaran, the Attorney General's department, we know there are thousands of cases where the files haven't been even touched. I mean, I have a case where some individuals who were campaigning for my election during the 2020 parliamentary election were charged for violating COVID regulations, because they had been more than a group of 5 walking together for the campaign to give out my leaflets. This is not during lockdown, but during the campaign period. And now their case, we have been waiting for the Attorney General's opinion for 3 years on this particular case, such a simple issue. So then I told the minister, we are talking about thousands of people where people are claiming their sons have been enforced disappeared. So children have been disappeared, or their loved ones have been disappeared. So how do you think the Attorney General can handle it? Then he said, we'll have a separate court, mechanism, judicial mechanism. So then there was a question of international observer. There is no international observer. So since then, that is the last time we heard about the TRC. After that, there has been no discussion about the TRC. The government speaks to the international community and the diplomats and the UN Human Rights Council about the TRC, but not to the elected representatives who represent the victims. So representing the victim community, if the government has no solution for the issue, then obviously in another election that comes up, again, this will be a focus, the attention will be given. People's mandate would surround, accountability for their loved ones. And number 2, for a long-lasting political solution in this country, because, we can't be firefighting every day. In the morning, sometimes I wake up wondering which monk is doing what today. Where should I, where sometimes I wake up in the morning, hoping to have a different, program for the day. But I end up not getting home till 10 o'clock in the night, because either I'm in a police station trying to, resolve a matter where a young person has been arrested under the PTA, or I'm trying to protect the livestock farmers who have, group of monks went and held around 10, 15 livestock farmers hostage. And the reason for that was that the cattle had gone and damaged some crops of the encroachers. So therefore, they had tied them up to some tree. So I had to go and get them out. So now, do you think as an elected representative, my job is to do this every day? So, and for people also, do you think people are going, I'm just giving you 1 or 2 examples there, but there are hundreds of examples like this. There are Hindu temples where the Iyer or the main priest has been arrested and charged under the PTA for going into a Hindu temple, because all of a sudden it has come under the archaeology department. Then we have archaeology department, which is the archaeology department's mandate is to protect archaeological remains. Archaeological department's mandate is not to construct new sites. So we are firefighting on the ground every day, which is why a political solution is needed, because we can't be firefighting every day. People say, why can't you think like a Sri Lankan and bring investment to this country? This country needs young people like you to take. I mean, if I only focused on that, someone else will replace me in the Batticaloa district, because the needs of the people in the Batticaloa district is not the needs of the community in Colombo who say, Sri Lankan identity, why don't you focus on the economy? You're a young person, you're trilingual, you must focus on the country's economy, you must not get stuck in these issues like archaeology and all that. So, but I was elected by the people of Batticaloa, and people of Batticaloa have genuine, serious concerns and issues surrounding these matters. So, how can I not look into those matters and look into matters? I agree that we need a prosperous economy, but for a prosperous economy, we need investments to come. Just a debt restructuring process or the IMF agreement alone is not going to take Sri Lanka to its true potential. We need foreign direct investments, and foreign direct investments will not come to this country till there's political stability and till there's reconciliation in this country. So, for us to focus on that, this has to be solved as well. Otherwise, I would have to change my district and come to Colombo and betray the people of Batticaloa who put their trust in me. So I am not going to do that. I am not going to betray my people who placed their trust in me in the previous election, because election, our election promises were that we will make progress on accountability. We will make progress on political solution, but no progress. If at all, we have gone back further from where we were in 2000 during the Yahapalne government. So without resolving these issues, there is no future for this country. So next election also, we will have to address these concerns along with obviously with development issues, but development oriented issues also with government MPs. We have Pullian in the government, we have Douglas in the government, from the north end we have Vyalendran in the government, but in terms of they have not been able to deliver anything.
Where is the solution? Because, like you were saying, successive governments have been having discussions with Tamil political parties to address these issues. ITAK, on its part, has been, successfully. I mean, every election, you have been pushing on this issue, but there's still no permanent solution. And you're going to have the same thing again next year as well. Same faces are there contesting the elections as well. So where would the Tamils find the solution?
Well, Tamil people are very resilient people. 75 years, they have been, the struggle has continued. It was the struggle was a purely political campaign till the late 70s. And the Tamil youth lost faith in the Tamil politicians. So even Tamil politicians were killed. And then it moved to an armed struggle. And after 2009, again, it has gone back to a political struggle. I want to very correctly place this on record that we are not asking for separation. Before 1976, also it was a internal solution within a united Sri Lanka that the Tamil leaders wanted, which is what we want today as well, which is what the people want, right? So the party and the Tamil people, I think they will, just because the government, successive governments are not addressing this issue, doesn't mean the Tamil people will give up. So we are on the right side of our people. We have been genuine to our people. We have been voicing out their concerns. We have been advocating for their concerns to address their grievances, which we will continue to do. And therefore, our people will elect us again. And I think this time we'll have a sounding majority as opposed to the last time, because under the Yahapalne government, we made some progress. So people kind of thought, okay, so maybe we can now, work with the government. So, that is why people got elected from the government. But I think the next election, there'll be no, very few or no elected MPs. I mean, under the proportional representation system, there could be 1 or 2 MPs elected from the mainstream political parties. But other than that, I think there will be no politicians elected from those parties, because they have lost faith again. So the solution for this is that, whoever is a leader of the majority community needs to have a backbone to really put their foot down and say this is something that needs to be resolved for the country to prosper. The entire country, for it to prosper, this issue needs to be resolved. My grandfather worked on this issue. I am working on this issue 75 years later. I don't think my grandson, my grandson or my son should be also working on this issue. These issues should be resolved now. It shouldn't go any further. So I think the international community also has a huge role to play in this, because because end of the day, now it's very clear that economic crimes are committed in this country. So economic crimes that have been committed in this country, the international community must address. So when we talk about now, if you talk about the Easter Sunday attacks, everybody in Sri Lanka wanted is international investigation, except for those who have been accused of doing the Easter Sunday attack. The Channel 4 documentary has been completely, it has died off. There's no discussion about that. Ranil Wickremesinghe at one point said we need international inquiries on Sri Lankan matters. He's now saying the domestic inquiry is okay, right? So we need a leader with a backbone who can do the right thing. So otherwise, it's not just the Tamil people of this country. The Sinhala people will also face a very difficult future, and we will have brain drain. Not just the Tamils who are migrating the country now. There are more Sinhala people migrating, leaving this country than the number of Tamil people who are leaving this country. So this country will, I was at a discussion where Mr. Pakisori Sarvanamuthu said something very interesting. He said, our country's economy may be a remittance-based economy, where we have an aging population who depend on remittances from overseas. Now, you're a great example for that. You have migrated to Australia, and whoever your loved ones may end up depending on your remittances for their future. So we will have an aging population who depend on remittances from young people from overseas. When the aging population ceases to exist, what is this country's future? Are we not ever going to be a thriving economy? Because with young people migrating, with brain drain, we will never be a thriving economy. So for that, reconciliation is a must. And if anybody thinks that bringing in anti-corruption laws, or bringing in central bank regulations, or bringing in IMF agreements or domestic debt restructuring, if these things alone can fix this country, they will be fooled, and they will realize that in another few years when we go back to the IMF again, because without foreign direct investments, this country can't. Now, right now, we are not paying repayments. Whatever remittances that we get into the country have been converted into reserves. I think we've only paid 1 or 2 loans. But when the IMF restructuring happens and we have to start paying debt, there is still no real plan in place to pay the debt.
And we'll have to leave it at that. We've had quite an extensive discussion, a lot to talk, but unfortunately we ran out of time. Thank you very much, MP Rasamanickam, for joining us on the program today on Fire and Daily Mirror.
Thank you, Easwaran. Thank you for providing me with the space to bring out some of the concerns. And my humble request to all the people who watch this is that take the message for what is in the message. Don't, what happens generally is when I speak about these issues, Rasamanickam is just another terrorist, or Rasamanickam is just another separatist, or Rasamanickam just wants his country, he wants more problems. He doesn't want, think about what I have said from the perspective of a citizen who lives in Batticaloa in the north and the east, and how they feel about this issue. For me personally, I went to school, I went to school in Australia, and for me, I can migrate out of this country if I want to. I lived in Australia. I chose to come back to this country because I want this country to have a better future. At the age of 22, I moved back when I had my, when I had a better future in terms of for my personal self. So the reason why I moved back, I'm not here to make a living out of politics. The only reason why I bring these concerns out is that people understand that these are concerns not concerns of Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, but these are concerns of the people who have elected Shanakiyan Rasamanickam. So therefore, if these issues are not resolved, if they say he's just another fellow, he's just another separatist, we must not support him, there'll be another Shanakiyan Rasamanickam who will come back, who will probably, the only reason for them coming into politics would be to get re-elected. Whereas as opposed to myself, I want these issues to be resolved. First, the country to have a better future, not to sit on these issues, which is why I'm raising these issues. Otherwise, it's very easy for me to avoid English media, say these, propagate the issues again and again in the Tamil community to increase my vote base. But I'm taking the time and any opportunity that I get to raise these concerns amongst fellow citizens who would at least comprehend where the Tamil people are coming from based on their issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's all the time we have for you for On Fire for this week. Till next time.